A Kultured Kast has been created for entertainment and educational purposes. The advice given are opinions of our host and not of medical advice. The podcast is not a substitute for direct, personalized, professional medical care and diagnosis. Exercises and dietary advice mentioned should be discussed with your physician or personal trainer to find out what is best for you.
You want to get fit? How about Ultra Fit? Come grab your Ultra Fit meals at Athletic Culture. You'll love it.
This episode of Kultured Kast is made possible by Paul Sadlin Motors, your local Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, Cadillac dealer on Bayfield Street in Barrie and online at paulsadlin.com.
Welcome to episode 10 of the Kultured Kast with Big Papa Mac, CJ Fitness and Pro Performance Training, the big guy, the pretty boy, and the old man. And welcome our guest, Mitchell Hooper, aka the Moose. He's 325 pounds, correct? Ballpark. 6'3", exactly 1 foot taller than Corey. Fiance to the veterinarian Ashley, director and founder of Longevity, an exercise physiology business in Barrie, helping people with injuries and chronic conditions. He's an athletic culture athlete. He's competed in university football. He did bodybuilding show, which we'll discuss later. He's ran 3 marathons, and oh, by the way, he's a scratch golfer. Asshole. Then he's been competing, I think now for just over a year, correct?
Under a year, yeah.
Under a year. Yeah. And his accolades are 2022 World Strongman finalist, Giants Live Strongman second, Giants Live World Open second, Shaw Classic third, UK Arnold's first, Giants Live World Final Table first, and Rogue Invitational third. And he also has the third heaviest deadlift on record at 1,047 pounds. Is that all accurate, Mr. Hooper?
That's all accurate.
Did you leave out anything?
Australia. I won in Australia 2 weeks ago, but
yes,
that's okay.
I didn't have that.
That's
correct.
right.
Now I want to have full disclosure before we start. Earlier, Mitch gave me a massage and touched my nipples. And I told him it was inappropriate, and I told my wife, and he promptly said it was her idea.
He just touched my nipples.
Well,
It's a nice
We were talking about fetishes last episode.
He lives by the personal motto of lift heavy, be kind. That's my first question is, where do you get your innate shyness from? Like, why are you such a shy guy?
Do you know what? I actually, in junior kindergarten, my mom had to go in to the school with me because I would not speak. And the teacher wasn't convinced that I knew anything. They didn't know that I knew my ABCs or how to count. They wanted to hold me back in junior kindergarten because I was too shy. And that's my personality. Like
Is it really?
100%. Yeah, I've had to fight that very hard to be able to have even a conversation like this.
Okay, so when people approach you, because you are so approachable at the gym, like you don't hesitate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I was socially inept before. Like the best sort of example, like I was valedictorian of my high school class, which is basically you're not an idiot and win a popularity contest. But I also, I didn't go to a single party in high school. I went to the bar a handful of times in college. I had in university, I had the idea that to accomplish what I wanted with my life, I just didn't need other people. And so it wasn't as though I couldn't speak to other people. I didn't have fun around other people. I just wasn't interested in forming interpersonal relationships. And so, then a large part of why I went to Australia was to build on that and to improve on that, because I recognized that was a pretty big personality flaw. And I went to Australia, I knew no one, and thought that was that was a big personal endeavor. And I always say when I left, I threw myself a going away party. And this is like, in terms of social, this is all time low. When all the friends that I could invite, I had 6 people.
No way.
And I had 1 person come. And so.
Was that a knock to your ego, or you were just okay with that?
No, that was tough.
Okay.
That was really tough. Yeah. But I also could very easily understand how I got there. And I got there through saying no to doing everything. I'd play intramural sport, but otherwise I wouldn't go out for beers after. I wasn't interested in going and partying and all that. Then biggest success of my life to date is a going away party / engagement party that we did in Australia. And there was 80 people there in the height of COVID. We had about 20 cancel for a going away type party leaving Australia, none of which were family or anything. So that was big. But my nature is very shy. In fact, when I first started doing podcasts, I would have full panic attacks I'd be sweating like mad, and it would just be like a Zoom conversation with someone with like 100 followers. That was like really, really tough.
Yeah.
But to me, it's sort of what life is about.
So now translate that to you're on the world stage a dozen times a year now, getting interviewed in front of millions of people. Mm-hmm. How does that translate to you now?
It makes me a much better person. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've got over the past 12 months is when I get nervous, I get red hot and sweaty. When I'm competing, I'm already red hot and sweaty. So I literally grab the mic. I take every chance I can to speak to the crowd because I can still articulate and I can still think and I can still orate, but I'm already in that physical state.
The symptoms aren't as noticeable because you're
not at all.
They don't know that you're nervous.
So I have a free pass.
You're more comfortable doing it that way than on a podcast, sitting on a couch on a screen because you're at an event, you're competing. Like, are you more relaxed in that setting?
There's an element of authority, but it's more so that I feel like I can't be judged for being physically presenting that way. And it sort of got to the stage now where here is the same to me as there is. But in 2 weeks' time, or a week and a half, I've been asked to speak at the Rotary Club. And I have to eat that stuff up because it's going to make me a better person. But I'm like, terrified. I'm having a hard time thinking about how to do it. Not terrified in a way. Because I'm okay. That's the funny bit. I'm okay sucking. I'm okay if I don't do well. I'm okay if it doesn't go well. But just, I suppose, hoping that it does.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm surprised by that because your competitive nature is off the charts. But you're okay with failure.
I don't think my competitive nature is off the charts.
Really?
No.
Okay. So where would you gauge your competitive nature? How would you gauge your success in basically everything you've done? Competitive wise.
I think competitive nature traditionally refers to your competitiveness to other people. And I don't feel that I'm that competitive towards other people. And none of my goals have anything to do with winning competitions. My goals just have to do with bettering myself. And whether that's getting physically stronger or running further or being a better golfer or being a better person, then great. And Strongman is the proxy to be able to do that right now. And then using that platform to be able to impact other people. Those are my goals. I could not care less if I win World's Strongest Man or not, aside from the fact that that's now a great proxy to build a platform to impact people.
Right.
And the things that's the funny bit, like even people close to me, and it's sort of stuff that I've struggled with in the past 12 months, like people at the gym who come up to me or even like more distant family members and stuff, they'll have an impression of me that's completely untrue. And like, sure, I present as confident now, but you never know the journey to actually get to that place where now you seem as though you could say anything. And so then you now present as a person who can take a lot of criticism, who's unflappable, and people will treat you that way. Mm-hmm. And it's just not true.
It still stings a bit.
Yeah, of course, it sucks.
Well, and the other thing too is like we're raised to be confident, and sometimes it takes a longer time, like you to become confident. But now do you feel that some people would view you as arrogant?
Yes. And I've got that. And that's why it's important to me. My favorite study at the moment, to quote, is the jelly bean study, where if we had a jar of jelly beans on the table and we were asked how many jelly beans are in the jar, and I asked you, on average, you're going to be pretty bad at guessing how many there are. But if I asked all three of you and we averaged, usually that gets closer. And if we ask the whole room, that gets closer. And if you ask 10,000 people, you get a pretty damn good answer. And so that's why I think when it comes to something like comments on Instagram and YouTube and all that, it would be an error not to listen to people and not to read your arrogance or your humble and those are actually the two most common things I get commented on my personality. But noticing, okay, 5% of people think I'm arrogant, 95% no. Okay, but you have to watch that over time, because if that proportion grows, you have to accept that as true. And you sort of have to check yourself on like, how do I want to present?
Do you pivot at that point?
Yeah, well, not pivot, because everything that I speak about and everything that I say, the lift heavy, be kind and all that, it's not because I lift the heaviest and I am the kindest. It's just because I think they're two great things to strive towards. And it's not pivoting because the intention's always the same, but the presentation has to be changed a little bit.
Okay. Agreed. So you touched on it, and it was my first point, because we're not going to get into why you do strongman, all that boring stuff we discussed previously. What's the psychology you lead into a competition? Or is it because we know it's not nutritional, preparation, because I see he only has a flight of beer every night before a competition. But psychologically, how do you prepare? You shouldn't post because I see everything.
I don't. Someone was asking me the other day, how do I deal with the pressure? I don't feel pressure. I mean, if I come first or I come 10th I mean, it sort of is what it is. Like at this stage, I've accomplished more than I ever could have thought I would have in the sport.
Yeah.
And the only bit that would be disappointing is, I mean, in a smaller sense, that I couldn't grow and scale as much in that way. But I see how successful some people are who have accomplished nothing at all. So it's not even required to win strongman comps.
That's right.
But the only bit that would be hard to swallow is like, okay, say I don't do well at the Arnold. It's hard for me to think that my family's there watching me perform poorly and like feeling like letting other people down. But myself, I don't care. I'd rather lose and have a great reputation as treating the fans well and having time for people and treating sponsors well, all that type of stuff. I'd rather that reputation than the reputation of the guy who wins. The best example being Mariusz Pudzianowski, who won World's Strongest Man 5 times, and none of you have any idea who he is. And maybe you do, but he is purported to be a complete asshole. And no one cares that he won World's Strongest Man 5 times. People care more that he didn't treat other people well. Right. So if you put it in that perspective, then why would I be nervous about trying to be nice to people and like trying to present well? Yeah, you have so much control over that, where maybe the log press, you push it out of place and you don't get the rep, and okay.
People aren't going to remember that. They're going to remember the person that you were.
Yeah. And how important is that really?
Yeah.
Like how important is really being strong? It's not at all. I didn't care about it 3 years ago, and I don't pretend that anyone else should really care about it too much either.
Right.
You know, other than proxies to do other things. Say the gym, like the reason I'm on this podcast is because I have a following and because I have a story, because of strongman, but there's no, you're not actually going like, so what's it feel like to have a log over your head? What's it feel like to deadlift? I don't know. It feels the same as it does for you when something's heavy. Yeah. Like that feeling never changes.
Just a log over your head. That's how I feel as well.
Yeah, that's right. So it's pretty special to use it as a proxy to do other things. But to me, that's all it is. It's just a proxy.
So you innately are more proud of, let's say, longevity and you starting that business and your contribution to the community in Barrie for that than you are anything you do on stage in strongman?
You know, I'm proud of a handful of things I've done. Very little has to do with my performance outcomes. I've built quite a few communities around the strongman space. I think I've been able to help a lot of people there. I think the project of longevity is really important and really fulfilling to me long term. But pride is not an emotion that I feel a whole lot of in any shape ever, really. Because I feel like once I've done something, so I win a competition, I don't stand at the top of the podium and feel like
you're on top of the world.
No, like it's sort of.
You look like it. You look pretty happy and proud in that moment.
I mean, people are cheering for you, sure, but I suppose happy and fulfilled are different things. Where my general overwhelming sense of standing on the podium is that whole charade lasts a bit too long. Like I'd rather just get on with it, and then you very, very quickly come down. If you don't have someone with you there, you're in the hotel room by yourself plus a trophy. With
a trophy.
Awesome. You're sick.
You got something to cuddle.
So that's why in a direct sense, it's, I sort of see it for what it is, which is a fun sport, a way that people can draw some inspiration, but a very good opportunity for some stuff moving forward.
Right on. And then what about the relationships? Because I watched a couple of your YouTube channel videos today, and you've talked about the development of the relationships inside that culture.
Yeah.
How important is that to you? And who's, I'll call you out, who's your favorite? Who do you connect with?
It's so funny. I mean, after the Shaw Classic in Colorado, we all went on like side by sides. And when you take the strongman out of it, it's the weirdest group of people you've ever seen. Like, it's so eclectic and people from all over the world and like interested in such different things. And you got guys who are engineers and like guys who can't tie their shoes. And you're like, how is this a thing? How are we doing this? But it's important to me, and it's a continuation of that personal mission to be able to continue forming strong interpersonal relationships. But some of my best friends are in strongman right now, even though I've only been in the sport for 12 months. And it's more because they understand what's going on, not in the sense of you all understand what it's like to train, and my training feels the same as your training. It's not that different, but they understand like people always evaluating you. They understand people criticizing you, and they understand like all of the struggles that go along with like having success on the surface, but success on the surface is just the surface. Like you could have anything going on underneath that and no one knows and no one cares. And like I always talk, I've drawn this really interesting negative correlation. On the x-axis, you've got how long has someone known you, and on the y-axis, or say how well someone knows you, and on the y-axis, you go how much do they like you, and you've got all these fans who absolutely adore everything about you, and
they know nothing,
and they don't know you really well at all, so like they're like way up here, and then you like walk it down to the people who know you best, and then you're like you're a normal person to them, which is fine, like that's how I want that, but then you're like, why is it that when people get to know me better, they like me substantially less?
I think you got to look inside there, pal.
Yeah, well, and it's natural, it's normal, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like
100%.
Everyone's had their partner, like smelled their partner's poo for the first time. And you're like, there's a before that and an after that in the relationship.
I'm still smelling my partner's poo every friggin' night, babe.
I literally said to Nikki last week, can we go back to the days when you were embarrassed to fart in front of me?
Yeah. Or you shut the bathroom door. Can we go back to those days? Is that possible?
Do you know, Ashley has this thing, it's so funny. If we're sleeping and I fart, and sorry, I'm sleeping, I fart, and she's awake, she needs to announce that to me. She'll wake me up and she'll go, it literally happened last night. It's the middle of the night. And she goes, you farted on me. And I'm like, wake up. I'm like, I take it back.
So 2 nights ago, last night we're laying in bed and my fiance is like, hold on, I meant to tell you this. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, last night you farted on me. And I was like, what? Did I? I thought that was a dream. So apparently I'm like laying there and I like let one out and she's like, it was very loud, but I let you sleep. And then I guess that loud one kind of disturbed my sleep. The second one woke me up. And the third one, I was like, oh shit. I just did that. And I thought I said, you know, I'm sorry. But she's like, no, you fucking didn't. So yeah, farts in bed.
You guys need to build a pillow wall like I have between myself and my wife. Yeah. So if I want to know if she's awake, I literally have to sit up and look over the wall. Like, oh no, she's still asleep.
I just wear a plug now to hold them in.
Yeah, there
You can get those at the Stag Shop, I think.
Isn't that one of your sponsors on your OnlyFans page there, Joe?
We're rebranding.
I apologize. Injuries. I saw a couple of videos today. That one that nobody saw last year at the World Strongman when you were doing the Atlas Stones.
Yeah.
That's a friggin' terrifying video.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Like, does that something that enters your mind, or you're just in the moment and you don't care?
No, I mean, that is a bit of an extenuating circumstance.
What happened?
Well, I reached the stone up and I was too far right of the platform, so I turned left. And then I internally rotated my ankle. I turned it inwards. Fine. But the way that's an extenuating circumstance is because mostly what we're worried about is musculoskeletal injuries.
Yeah.
Which that would have been musculoskeletal if that landed on me, but it also would have meant that I'd have a prosthetic foot right now. And that's a bit different than what I'm prepared for. But in a large part, I'm not afraid of tearing a bicep or tearing a pec or a tricep because, like, are you afraid of the sun rising in the morning?
Yeah. It's going to happen.
At some stage, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, having a educated understanding of what that could mean long-term and accepting that and hoping that I make the right choice with that, then it is what it is. You know, if you tear a pec and you get an arthritic shoulder down the track, you know, I trade off what I'm doing and the risks, and is having a sore shoulder worth what I'm going to do for the next few years? And if it goes the way that it's tracking, then it seems that way. And on a larger sense, like not injuries, but mortality, is this is going to make your life shorter? Is that okay with you? And I've had to weigh that up as well. And yeah, in a way, taking a few years off is fine. And some guys would say, I'll die in the competition if I have to.
Yeah.
Well, that's wild.
I'm like, no
Well,
way.
we talked about that
No way. No,
when you
I'm
got
not
back
there.
from the Rogue, and I'm watching you on TV, and I'm looking over, and the guy beside you's on the oxygen mask.
Yeah.
It looks like he needs a 3-man team and a set of paddles. Like, I'm like, you're sitting there just talking away. And is that the dichotomy of all the different athletes when you were referring to earlier? Like,
yeah. Well, there's no one as fit as me, but there's no one with my background either. It's extraordinary circumstances. But there's certainly strongman competitors and there's strongman athletes. And most of the guys at the top are athletes, but you certainly get some guys who are competitors who are, way overweight, completely out of shape, strong as hell, but don't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Who thrive. They do pretty well. But it's certainly obvious. And I think it's pretty undigestible for the sport. But I use that as well.
Yeah, I know you do.
If I'm tired after an event, if I'm out of breath, I will downplay it a million times over so that everyone sees that.
Yeah.
Once that the fans see it, because I want to show you don't have to be, when I walk down the street, okay, big guy, but you don't go like, could be one of the strongest men in the world.
Yeah. You know what? That's one of the things I hear most people talk about you. Maybe I'm training a client and I always say, oh, do you know Mitch? That's Mitch over there, and kind of tell them a little bit about you. Yeah. And they're like, they all say the same thing. They're like, he's not that big for a strongman. Yeah. They all say it. Yeah.
Which is true in a sense, but I'm the same size as Alexei Novikov, way bigger than Rob Kearney. Like there is a bit of a spectrum, but it's important to me to stay in relatively good shape and show people that the body is capable of some pretty incredible things without having to go down the path of abusing it. And I think I'm walking the line pretty well right now, where if you wanted me to go run 2 kilometers right now, I'd have no issue. But there's certain trade-offs as well. But I think it is psychologically when you're out of breath and you're tired, but you won't put that onto your competitor who's on oxygen. Yeah. And you go up to him, he goes, does the event, he's on oxygen, you do the event, you go, are you okay?
You good?
You seem
little psychological warfare.
Yeah. But it's important to me that the sacrifice is not disproportionate to the reward.
Right. Yeah. And has your athletic history helped you prepare, and have you changed the sport because of that? I happen to think you have.
I don't know if I could claim to have changed anything right now. I mean,
it's transitioning for sure, isn't it?
I've been in it for less than a year. I think it probably would have started. Alexei's smaller and a bit more athletic as well. But of course, the athletic background has helped. I mean, in ways that I wouldn't have anticipated. Like, for example, running has made my lower legs really strong. And doing yoke, one of the biggest complaints is traditionally a strain of the tibialis posterior, and that's you can only do yoke once a week, and then that hurts too much for you to be able to continue. So something like that's helped me, the agility from football, even like the torsional loading from golf on my spine, like that's made my spine more resilient. So it's certainly benefited me in a lot of different ways. And I think it just tends towards how younger athletes are right now, where you need to do a whole bunch of sports if you want to be the best at one thing. And certainly has given me advantage. In terms of changing the sport, I think I'm starting to make an impact. One of the things that I would love people to realize is that I'm healthier than 95% of amateur strongmen who make $0 from this and are half as strong, who believe, genuinely, I was having a conversation with a guy 2 days ago. He was telling me he was having a hard time recovering from competition. What should he do? And I saw his face on Zoom. All I needed was the face. And I said, all due respect, like put your thick skin on. What's your height and weight? And he's like, 6'2", 390 pounds. And I'm like, why are you 390 pounds? Like, is this part of a weight loss thing for you? No. I was 320 at one stage, but I just felt weak. So I needed to go back up. I'm like, mate, I'm 320. And I'm lifting twice what you are. That's not it.
Yeah.
So I think if, you could use strongman as a great proxy to be able to improve your health, improve your life, because what are the fundamental movement patterns of life? We've got hinge, squat, push, pull, carry, overhead press. And that's also a strongman competition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
So you take it to the extreme, and it can be dangerous and whatnot, but you treat it reasonably, and it's one of the healthiest training methodologies that you could use. It makes a lot of sense. So being able to put that in perspective for people and go like, okay, sure, there's a risk of X, Y, and Z happening to me, but there's also now no risk of me having osteoporosis and no risk of me not being able to stand out of a chair when I'm 80. Even like now, if I never resistance trained again, right now, when I'm 80, I will still be able to stand out of a chair because of the work that I've done now.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you start that work when you're 70, it's a different story.
Right. Okay. So do you believe that the changing of events then you've impacted? Because one of the funniest videos you've posted at the gym is you running in with that sandbag because
Yeah.
you think it's the most ridiculous event that's coming
I
up.
filmed
but
that.
It's absolutely hilarious. Do they change the events? So Jeff, Corey, and Todd still, we want to see this event because we're bored with the Alice Stones? Or why the changing? Why not just have your basic strongman events that we're all used to?
Oh, they want to keep it fresh?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm asking.
No,
or
I
does
think
Mitch
that's
think
just-
that he affected that?
No. That's just that you haven't followed the sport for very long because
I have.
the events are always different.
Yeah, but you have your staples. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, like, are they starting to change them to make it harder for the athletic strongman versus the guy that has the strongman gut? Is what I guess I'm kind of getting at.
Are they tending towards being more athletic events? Is the
Yes.
question?
Yeah. And do you think you're if that's an attribute to you because you're changing the sport? And maybe you're not. Maybe I'm just reading into it.
I don't think I've been around long enough to claim that I'm doing anything for the sport as a whole outside of impacting people doing the sport. Because they plan these things so far out. But
How much notice do you get as an athlete?
pardon me?
How much notice do you get as an athlete?
Depends on the comp, but 8 weeks, 10 weeks.
That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Is
that's
that
pretty
enough to
generous
prepare
as well.
for one event?
Yeah.
It is, eh?
Yeah. But I think it's not becoming more athletic, but more athletic guys are exposing the events. So you take
Okay.
a standard strongman comp and you've probably got something for max, you've got something for reps, you've got some type of medley, something for grip and Atlas stones, right? Okay. If you're strong enough to be pretty good for max, you have to, and you're fit to be very good for reps, you're fast and agile to be good in a loading race. Your grip is actually, the lighter you are, the better your grip is proportionally because your hands don't get fat. And as soon as your hands get fat, they get smaller. And then your grip goes to shit.
Huh,
So that's actually an advantage. And then you got Atlas stones. So on average, strongman is more about being strong enough and being fast, agile, and athletic as it is just being strong. Yeah, I think they're also seeing the 2017, 2018 Arnold's. It ended several guys' careers because they just took the weights too far. And that's when they did the 1,500 pound yoke and the 450 pound log press. And so you need to be able to keep athletes around the sport for a long time. And I think to do that, you have to be careful about the weights because as much as we can lift a lot, we have the same anatomy as everyone else.
And are different competitions, so Giants Live, Arnold's, World Strongman, do they compete with one another going, I'm going to put on this event because I think this is going to get more viewership than what they did at the Arnold's?
They try to be symbiotic.
Okay.
Really, there's two streams of shows. Giants Live is the qualifying tour for World's Strongest Man, and that's the podium there is the only way to qualify for World's Strongest Man.
Okay.
So that's the one tour, so to speak. Then you've got Rogue, and Rogue does the Arnold's. They do the Rogue Invitational. And then I suppose running alongside that now you have Shaw. So you sort of have these three groups of people. None of them want to have a show on the same weekend or even like back-to-back weekends because then you're fighting for who's going to what.
Yeah.
But they're smart because say Giants Live, they put on 5 shows a year. I think they're going up. They're going to go 6 or 7 this year. And if they want guys to compete regularly in that, they need to have reasonable weights and reasonable events.
Yeah.
Because if I'm looking at a show and the payout is 30 grand and it's max overhead, max deadlift, it's something that's going to be very taxing.
Yeah. Risk reward.
And then 3 weeks later is Rogue with $150,000 prize. And like, okay, what are we going to do? Because you can't have your peak strength at the same time as you have your peak ability to do something for reps.
Right.
Yeah. And that's something that probably a lot of people don't understand. If I'm training to do 350 kilos for reps, I don't want my deadlift to be as strong as it's ever been. Like, it just needs to be, you need a reasonable buffer and some good endurance.
Yeah.
So you can't go max deadlift and 2 weeks later deadlift for reps and expect to have your best performance in both. And so then you're underperforming at a certain show. It gets into sort of a whole lot of the art of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which to me mostly just gets into don't over prepare for a show. Last year I didn't prepare for one show outside of World's Strongest Man. All I did was do enough to be safe.
Yeah.
Otherwise I just rocked up and
And you did all right.
did my thing. I did all right.
I have one question before we kind of move on. So I've worked in gyms for almost 10 years and not once have I ever seen a strongman until I met you.
Yeah.
And now I see 3 or 4 of them in the gym doing
Yeah.
some of the same exercises and movements as you.
Yeah.
Is the sport getting more popular, or are people seeing you and saying that would be cool? I want to try that because of you.
I think both. Yeah. The guys who you've seen at Athletic Culture were dabbling in it before I got there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
I saw them doing their thing before Mitch showed up.
But in terms of okay, put it this way. I'm the first Anglo World's Strongest Man Canadian competitor in 24 years. If you go to Quebec, there are heaps of strongman gyms, and it sort of feeds into itself. And all you need is one person. So say I won World's Strongest Man, promise you, strongman gyms will start popping up in English-speaking Canada. And I think that's all it really takes. And the thing about it, though, is everything in fitness that's taken off in the past 10 years has been community-based, whether it's F45 or CrossFit or whatever you have. And those pursuits are great for people who are in relatively good shape. And the thing that I like most about strongman is if you're like way overweight, you can be pretty good pretty quick. Like your legs are probably pretty strong. You're probably relative. So it's a form of exercise you can get into regularly on top of one of the best communities I've ever been a part of. And so that's why I think for a lot of people, that's a very viable option for exercise to be healthy, but also something that could really take off if the right, the right intangible factors are put into play.
Right.
Which is one of my medium-term goals. I have all the kit to open a gym here. And when I have the time, which maybe I'll never have the time, how things are going. But that would be great to be able to start having a community and being able to, to be able to grow it even more.
Well, I think too, to touch on your point, like we haven't seen that in a lot of gyms, but a lot of gyms didn't have a yoke and we had a little mini log.
We just started getting that stuff when Mitch.
No, we had a yoke before.
Yeah, we did. We
did?
We opened with the yoke. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's why we see them there now. And then Mitch, I think, has just brought more popularity to it.
Yeah, and I think we've built a couple of things for you. The calibrated plates were brought in for you, and I think people see that and see you, and they're like, okay, hold on. I want to try that. Why do you think I make you lock everything up? Because I know the idiots at 2 o'clock in the morning are going to try what you try.
Yeah, I
And
bet
something's
we're
gonna happen.
the only commercial style gym in the country with a fingers finger.
Yes.
That cracks me up so much.
I wanna ask
I was
you
on
what-
the phone with Todd yesterday and I heard a loud thud.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you at a gun range? He's like, no, it's just Mitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that so often.
Yeah.
Like people come up
And
to
then you
me.
leave the log at 12 feet high. And I'm like, Mitch, you coming back to the gym
I'm
there,
actually
Paul?
embarrassed about that. I get that all the time when people are like, they'll say something along the lines of, I heard this huge bang and I thought, what the hell is going on? I was going to say something, but I realized it was just you. And I'm like, it's really nice to have a home gym where people sort of understand what I do. Because I'm not blind to the fact that it's fucking obnoxious. I understand. It's so irritating. And like, I think so too. I'd love it to be a bit quieter. It sort of is what it is at a certain stage.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was training a client and you were deadlifting
Yeah.
and it was a little loud. And I looked over and I said, can you be quiet? And you looked at me and you're like, all right. And you deadlifted an obscene amount of weight. And like you slowly put it down and I didn't even hear a drop. And I was like, holy shit.
Well, I was gonna say I've seen Mitch, deadlift a shit ton of weight, and then you got, Buddy warming up, fucking slamming the weights on the ground.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
screaming.
Yeah, and screaming.
Well, it's funny because I do. So say when I'm warming up to super heavy lift, you'll notice most of the time I'll drop it from my waist. And the thing that people don't understand is 99% of people are doing that because they're being an asshole. But I'm managing sympathetic fatigue
Absolutely
because eccentric contractions for sympathetic fatigue is through the roof.
Absolutely.
And so you're like, yes, I'm doing, it's almost like growing social media. You're like, yes, I'm doing the same action. I'm trying to gain followers, but I'm not doing it to feel amazing about myself.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I'm dropping the bar, but I'm not doing it so that everyone knows. I don't care. It's just,
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
like
I
you're
have
being an
to do.
asshole.
Yeah.
I'm still a nice guy. I'm just doing it to be smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same energy.
Which is, maybe that's a funny self-justification. We do the same thing and you're an asshole.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Humble and arrogant.
Yeah.
I would never know how they would get that
That's
difference.
right.
Mel.
That's right.
I just want to ask one question before we leave off to part 2. You said that the work you're doing now will help you get out of a chair when you're 80. But at the same time, you said doing strongman takes years off your life.
Mhm.
Explain those two different, because those are, and I happen to agree with what you said in the video I watched today, that it does take years, but that you talked about a trade-off.
Yeah.
Why is it taking so many years off your life? What the type of training you're doing?
Well, just to touch on that, being alive and being able to stand out of a chair are not the same thing.
Absolutely.
Of course, being alive is a prerequisite to stand out of a chair.
Is it?
But one of my big goals for every client that I have and for myself is let's just get the stage where you're capable and the stage where you're no longer capable and the stage where you die. But let's get those two as married as we can.
Yeah.
You know, like just go out on top. So I think if I'm taking years off my life, but I'm adding to the productivity of my life, I'm okay with it. It's sort of what it has to be. And it's the same justification that anyone would have to make if you're bodybuilding. If you're choosing to be that lean, you're taking years off your life. And
Agreed.
all we're doing is shifting statistics or shifting risk factors.
Yeah.
Maybe that means I go from 97 to 94.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to give a shit when I'm that old
94,
anyway.
you're not going to care.
But maybe I don't have the best genetics. Maybe that means that it's 60 instead of 65. And it just boils down to like really strong value systems and what do you really want to get with your life? And what kind of mark do you want to have? And particularly because I'm not religious at all, I think when you die is the same thing as before you were born. And so you have to use this period of time to do whatever you want to do. And then when you die, if you're like 99.99% of the world, everyone will forget you existed. You will have made very little lasting impact on anything. And for me, that's the number one thing that I'm trying to fight. And I'm trying to have, I would like to change as many people's lives by 1 degree as possible. And that's it. Just if one person listens to this and goes, you know what, like, okay, thinking about when you die and what you want to accomplish is important. That's enough for me. That's all I need. Yeah. And that can expand and expand and expand. But that's why I always talk that way. Even at a dinner, I would love for my brain to not think that way. It'd be really relaxing for it not to, but that's just how it goes.
Okay, so we're going to lead off. We're going to go end this episode and we're going to come back for part 2. But we end each episode with some rapid fire questions. So I'm going to cut them in half and none of you have an idea of what's coming. So I'm going to read some questions.
Love these.
Where was the last place you urinated in public? Quiet from the crowd, please.
Wow, I'm not like that. I'm very conservative. I have to give it some reasonable thought.
I went out to breakfast last week and I pissed behind the building.
Yeah, I don't remember the last.
Sadly, I was with you the last time I did it. Remember we crossed the Brooklyn Bridge and I found that bush and I was in there for like 10 minutes.
I remember that. You had to go so bad.
Oh,
It would have been walking the dogs in the park in the forest.
there you go. That's fair. Not very exciting, but fair. Do you snore?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well,
No.
How would you know?
Because I have a CPAP.
Yeah.
Hey, all right.
If I'm really tired, I'm laying on my back. I probably snore a little bit.
All right.
Yeah. I actually asked my fiance last night, I'm like, how's my sleeping going? Like, am I dying in my sleep yet where I
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
sleep at machine?
Continuous positive airway pressure.
Yeah.
That's what CPAP stands for.
Yeah.
Mount Everest or Mariana's Trench? Where would you rather travel to?
I was thinking of the band. I was like, how did
Everest.
I knew you would.
Everest.
Everest? Yeah.
Everest for you too?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather stay in a 5-star hotel and spend money or stay in a 1-star hotel and save money?
Oh, if it's a hotel, 5-star.
5 stars. If I
You
have the
don't
money.
want
is
You
what
one
I'm
guys
saying.
are all prissy.
I was at a 3-star in Brisbane, and that was enough for me.
That's where I draw the line.
I was
Yeah.
3-star. Well, it was a 4-star in Cuba. No.
Yeah.
Have you ever ended a relationship via text?
No.
No. I've ended like seeing somebody.
Yeah, that's what we
Okay.
need a
Text only
definition.
because
there,
I
Todd.
could travel the distance. I'm not gonna
This
drive
clearly
down.
shows that you are not dating in the Tinder era.
No.
So
I was
great
about
on what a
to say,
relationship is.
pal, like they didn't even have text messaging when I ended my
Yeah.
last relationship.
Yeah.
They
22
had
years
that
ago.
big phone with the huge.
Yeah, they didn't even have that, pal. I
No?
got it off the wall.
Yeah.
Asshole.
The 2 pieces.
Okay, last one leading into the next episode. This is for you and I against him. What's the best advice you'd give your daughter or future daughter? Stay away from World Strongman.
I'm gonna go. I'll go third. Let me think.
Well,
Can you repeat it?
what advice would you give your daughter? We both have daughters, or your future daughter.
I don't have to think about it. Find your voice.
Pardon me?
Find your voice.
Attaboy.
Use your voice. That's your superpower.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, don't change yourself for anyone else.
I would say, yeah, independently determine who you are.
Oh, very good. All right.
Got him emotional. Look at.
Yes. Yes. It's something's in his eyes.
The lights are bright.
And we'll be back shortly with part 2 with Mitchell Hooper on the Cultured Kast.
This episode of Kultured Kast is made possible by Paul Sadlin Motors, your local Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, Cadillac dealer on Bayfield Street in Barrie and online at paulsadlin.com.
Breaking news! If you like that and you want more of it, go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe, and we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other stuff.